We're going to Hong Kong this hour, which has been in the news quite a bit this last week or two because of one Ed Snowden. Mr. Snowden, of course, the man who blew the whistle, as it were, on the NSA, and then flew off to Hong Kong to hide. And he wasn't hiding at first, but he's apparently in hiding now. Our man in Hong Kong, well, some of the time, Yoichi Shimatsu is there right now, and he's standing by. We're going to talk about this for the first half hour of this coming hour, and then we'll do some Fukushima updating for you in the second half hour. Hello, Yoichi. How are you?
Hi, Jeff. Yeah, I'm sitting here right opposite of the Mira Hotel where he had stayed for his first couple of weeks in Hong Kong before he went underground, disappeared from sight, and became a virtual person. In the eyes of the National Security Agency, the CIA, FBI, the Pentagon, and the U.S. Consulate, of course, which operates all these nefarious arms of espionage against its own citizens abroad, which, of course, from my understanding of the American Constitution as it was written during the American Revolution, not after, but during, this is all illegal, isn't it, for a government to be flying without warrant upon its citizens at home and abroad, and not only some of its citizens, all of its citizens. And, of course, Ed Snowden is the number one target right now. Although I must say, very strange here in Hong Kong, because I've been staying not too far from this place. And when he did go underground, there was some massive electronic bombardment where, I've got one of these Casio watches that went crazy. There's a lot of computer disruption.
Yoichi, where was this electrical interference now you're talking?
Well, it's just a couple of blocks, let's say a block away. I was staying a block away.
In the area of the hotel?
Yeah. There was massive surveillance over here. Guys in khaki shorts walking around, obviously with Pentagon-type haircuts. Basically, who knows what they're doing. But what I believe these electronic signals were about, they're trying to not so much catch him right now, but the only way they can get him is by somehow trying to track down the RFID chip in his computer, or let's say try to link up with his smartphone. They're trying to use remote access to get him, but to do that from a distance, they got to bombard the place with massive signals. I suppose I don't know what they're doing, but there's a lot of security companies here. Obviously, there's a lot of defense contractors. There's a lot of financial institutions here, banks. The Hong Kong Exchange, it's one of these big money centers like Zurich or New York or London. So there's a massive number of security companies with all sorts of electronic eavesdropping.
When he was staying in the hotel, this story had broken for part of the time, and I'm wondering what kind of security he had outside of his door.
Well, I think by that time, actually, he was gone. He probably had already checked out and kept
I don't know the timing.
Sort of as a magnet to throw them off the trail. Very smart guy. He knows a lot of tricks. And I did meet basically a guy who's a retired NSA staffer. Of course, he never retired from the NSA. He says that there's no way he could be simply NSA, that he is also probably contracted with the CIA. He knows a lot of tricks, and his career would indicate that. He works for both agencies in dual unit. It's a special collection center, which basically does both eavesdropping on their targets in the financial community and also operations, basically abducting, kidnapping, whatever they're doing, trying to implicate bankers in sex scandals and drunk driving charges. Probably drugging them too, so who knows.
Well, he described himself in that video as being a senior CIA analyst, among other things.
Well, this is the point. This is the whole point. See, this is what he says, and then the media is saying he's purely NSA, this highly doctored media, which is obviously covering a lot of tracks and covering what he said and not really giving fair attention to his words. So, he was basically CIA in the field. And that would have explained his movement in Japan, from Hawaii to Japan also. So
he may be long gone out of there.
He may well be, like I say, he's a virtual person, okay? He's a virtual person. He exists in the matrix of the internet, of chat, of Skype and all that. But as a person, he's either well hid out. And Hong Kong is not that difficult a place to hide out if you have friends. And I'm sure they've used the Google mapping service, Google Street View and all that, to try to pin down every house owned by every expat where he might be. Problem is, of course, a lot of those places are not registered in foreign names.
Right.
So this is a maze for them to cover. It's it's a spread out. Even though it's not very large enough, it's spread out across many centers. A lot of the buildings are sort of labyrinthine, and there's mafia, of course, and smugglers have operated out here. So there's all kinds of havens here. British intel, of course, dug in. The CIA also has a lot of safe houses here where they moved students after the Tiananmen affair. So this is just a spook island, basically, island of ghosts, spooks, where everyone's got safe houses and everyone's got security and shielding and all that. So it's going to be very difficult to dig anyone out if you want to hide them here.
Yeah. All right. Now, there were some demonstrations.
Quite an amazing, in that sense, it's quite an amazing place.
Yeah, I'd say.
I beg your pardon again?
I say there were some demonstrations in Hong Kong. How spontaneous were they?
I was there at the one. We were very lucky. The rain let up it never stopped, but it did. The massive downpours let up just in time for this demonstration to be pulled off. About maybe my estimate is 600 to 700 people. Had it not been raining so hard just earlier, a lot more would have showed up. And it was hastily called by only some of the political parties, so it's taken a while for people to get aboard, but, they met in the park, near the old, by the harbor there, but it's a real circuitous route, even though Hong Kong's a small place, because the police had everyone walking up through a park, and these are very, very narrow lanes, and the consulate itself is sort of penned in by these, anti-terrorist barricades. Not as if there are any terrorists ever going to strike Hong Kong, because it's not much of a target. It's not involved in the war on terrorism. It's not involved on either side. It's just a money center. But we're talking about, the sidewalk is only wide enough for 2 or 3 people, side to side. So people were stretched out, for nearly a half a mile or more than half a mile. They were stretched out in front of the consulate. So it was really, and the consulate itself is built like a fortress. I sent a story into you with some photos. The place is like, Fort Apache had nothing like it. I mean, we're talking about, cast iron fences, all kinds of wire, surveillance system, concrete blast walls, like, several concrete blast walls. So, it's basically the unfriendly face of America. America is hiding behind walls, and it's not clear whether it's a prison to keep the Americans in or to keep everyone else out. And I think they want Ed Snowden to be on the inside and not free on the outside for sure.
Well, if somebody wanted, let's just say the government of this country wanted to find him, would they be able to pay somebody off in Hong Kong to dig him up?
Well, there's obviously people who, since before the handover from British colonial era, who are very pro-Western, but they realize these are the very same people who fought for press freedom, freedom of expression. So they're in a quandary, like after, struggling since 1997 for rule of law, privacy rights, for freedom of expression, freedom from government interference. The government, they're talking about China, is very, very, in fact, it's ridiculous for them when a foreign government, tries to intrude and abduct one of its citizens. So they're in a real quandary. So far, the Democratic parties have taken a pretty strong stance. The Hong Kong police are on alert, and they will arrest anyone who tries to seize, anybody here. They're on heavy alert now to stop any abductions. The airport obviously is well covered. There's not many airports or heliports in Hong Kong, and they're all heavily covered. There's a lot of security cams. And so basically you see a lot of Americans right now hanging down in Wan Chai, the world of Susie Wong, using your tax dollars, to drink some very expensive English ales down and hang around with Filipino prostitutes down there. That's what your intelligence services are doing.
Is the media still obsessed with this story over there, Yoichi? Is he kind of the man?
Definitely. This is just the beginning of a long process here. It's going to be. There's ongoing investigations into the hacking by the U.S. government agencies. Hong Kong, as you know, is a financial center. You know, the HSBC Bank is the Hong Kong and Shanghai banking company. It used to be essentially the central bank of Hong Kong, that and Standard Chartered Bank. In fact, they issue currency along with the Bank of China. There's no mint here. The major banks do the minting. So these are major banks, and there's a lot of Chinese banks who have set up operations here. And, you know, HSBC, as a lot of people probably know from the 2008 financial crisis, took a massive beating from federal regulators, from the Justice Department, Treasury Department. They basically took the fall for triggering the subprime real estate crisis because they were the first to pull out of the market because they sensed the dangers. They thought it was really bad paper that was being issued, and they just became an underwriter. And for that, for their prudence, for their good business decision, they were just brutalized by federal authorities. And because, you know, American banks like Bear Stearns, Lehman, Citicorp, and all were left holding the bag of the loans that the U.S. government had authorized them to make, basically unsecured loans. In the process, in a couple of years after that, HSB, a couple of bankers were killed. Two of them were thrown off rooftop or out of windows in London, taken out, killed, along with about a half a dozen other bankers. Some of them were Swiss banks, UBS and Credit Suisse. So what happened yesterday, the fallout is international. This is a major financial center. All the major brokerages and banks are here, foreign banks. And what happened yesterday, the Swiss parliament stopped. They blocked the agreement between the banks and the U.S. Justice Department and Treasury, which would have reported the Americans who have accounts in Switzerland, have used it as a tax haven. They just said, enough's enough. All this intrusion that's led to all this mayhem, and I think they're quite aware that special teams of CIA, NSA have been involved in blackmailing bankers and very possibly murdering them or causing the conditions, let's say, putting enough blackmail on where they would want to commit suicide or assisted suicide. So basically, the U.S., all of its work to stop tax havens and all that, you know, to get them under control, to recover taxes, that's all out the window now. There's not going to be a foreign bank anywhere that's going to cooperate with Treasury. Treasury's a dog, and as you know, the markets are starting to slip. The U.S. is moving into a depression right now. You know, the stock markets are collapsing, and the United States is not going to get any cooperation from any central bank or major bank anywhere in the world after what they've done, you know, for the last dozen years. Just basically raped the banks, you know, stole account numbers, stole passwords to those accounts, and also robbed a lot of banks. We're talking about a government, you know, acting like those old days stagecoach robbers, you know, Black Bart and all that out west. You know, Wells Fargo was created to stop those kind of guys from robbing people. But the federal government is the robber in chief. You know, running these heists against private accounts without investigation, often mistaken. As soon as they impound that money, you know, you would have to have, just it's basically impossible to get it back. And there's just thousands of cases like that of just out and out theft. So people have had it. You know, this has nothing to do with the war on terrorism. It's very arbitrary, just to put the squeeze on people to make them cooperate and reveal who their clients are or their business associates are. It's just a form of basically naked extortion and blackmail. So this is not a government in the United States, you know. No. This is a gang. No. It's a very large criminal gang, organized crime group, much bigger than the Italian mafia ever could be.